Learn English through stories B11. Adapted and modified by Kulwant Singh Sandhu. Contents: 1. Jaga. 2. Countryside. 3. The blind man and young animal. 4. The fox and the grapes. 5. Picture dictionary page. 1. Jaga. Jaga was known as the tough guy at school. He was a big, strong boy. He was tall with a muscular body. Jaga always wore tight shirts. He showed off his muscles. Jaga always pushed the skinny kids at school. At the school canteen, each time he pushed through the queue. Jaga did not like waiting. He always treated the teachers like they didn't matter. Jaga never did his maths homework. He hated his maths teacher. Mr. Ramlal was often shaking when Jaga entered the class. There was one exception. He respected his English teacher. Her name was Daya Kaur. She was very humble and kind. Some students in her class were very poor. Their parents struggled to pay the school fee. Sometimes she paid their fee from her own pocket. Daya Kaur was an excellent teacher. She explained everything with ease. She always smiled at Jaga. In English, Jaga was the best student. He learned his English on YouTube. He loved listening to English stories on YouTube. He got in a lot of fights. He was an angry young man. People were afraid of him, and Jaga loved it. However, he was a good kabaddi player. He played for his school. He also played for his village. After passing his Class 12 exams, Jaga started assisting his dad in farming. Jaga had many ideas about farming. After some years, they own a large dairy farm. They have grown an orchard of many fruit trees. They also have a vineyard where they grow grapes. Daya Kaur's cousin, Mama Jai's son, lived in New Delhi. His daughter Navneet studied at Delhi University. She completed her BSc in agriculture science. She was passionate about organic farming. She had learned a great deal of it. Once she came to visit her Bua Daya Kaur. When they were talking about organic farming, Bua mentioned the name of Jaga. She said, "He owns a large farm. He has planted so many fruit trees. He also runs a dairy farm." Navneet got excited about the fruit trees. She wanted to visit the farm. She asked her Bua, "Waji, can I visit that farm you were talking about?" Bua said, "I have no objection, but..." Niece said, "But what?" Bua explained, "When Jaga was in school, he was always in a fighting mood. I do not know how different he is now." Anyway, the next day they went to the farm. When they arrived, Jaga was sitting on the veranda. He was reading a farming magazine, Times of Agriculture, India. As we knew, Jaga was excellent at English. He could speak well. He could write well. Reading and listening were not an issue. When Navneet saw a farming magazine in Jaga's hand, she was completely gobsmacked. You are gobsmacked when you are so surprised that you do not know what to say. Organic farmers usually use animal manure rather than man-made chemical fertilizers, which add extra nutrients to the soil. Jaga instantly recognized his teacher Daya Kaur and touched her feet. Then he said hello to Navneet. Navneet offered her hand shake hands. They shook their hand. Jaga said, "I was not expecting you. What is this?" The teacher spoke. "This is my niece. She has come to visit me. She is from New Delhi. She has done a degree in agriculture. She is passionate about organic farming. It was her favorite topic. She is also interested in orchard plantation." While they were talking, Jaga's mum came. She had met Daya Kaur many times before. She said, "Well, would you like cold drinks or hot?" Before the teacher said anything, the niece said, "Cold drinks first and hot drinks later." Everybody laughed. Jaga's mum said, "The girl is very frank." Jaga said, "Mum, you think she is very frank, but others may say she is very blunt." Navneet could not believe how well Jaga was versed in English. A boy from a village who has only studied up to class 12 can speak English like that. She was impressed. When Bua saw both Jaga and Navneet smiling at each other, a Punjabi song came to her mind. "So what if you are a girl from New Delhi? I also belong to a Jat family from Ludhiana." 2 years passed. Navneet completed his master's degree in agricultural science. Jaga did organic farming. They had been in constant touch. She visited her Bua many times. Jaga went to New Delhi to attend a seminar on organic farming. Jaga was not an angry boy anymore. A year later, Jaga and Navneet got married. Navneet teaches organic farming at a DAV college. Students from the DAV college come to Jaga's farm. They have been given small plots where they experiment with organic techniques. Navneet and Jaga go to the farmers in the village and nearby villages to promote organic farming. Many people call them Mr. and Mrs. Organic. One day, 2 old ladies from the village are having a chat with each other. Atro asks Chatro, their crops grow organically, would their children also be born organically? Chatro replies, "Dear sister, nowadays everything is possible." 2. Countryside. Wendy and John live in a small town in England. They have no children of their own. Some years ago, they discovered that Wendy could not have a child. They went to India every year. They mostly went in summer and stayed in Shimla. They loved Shimla. They often stayed in a hotel near Mall Road. Mall Road. In the evening, it is very busy on Mall Road. Lots of tourists roam around here. If the weather was clear and dry, they went to Kufri. Kufri is a small hill station about 20 kilometers from Shimla. The taxi takes about 40 minutes to get there. You can do scenic walks and visit parks. Wendy and John are very fond of this place. Kufri. Another famous spot for tourists is the Ridge. People gather here in large numbers. Even though Wendy and John are not very religious, sometimes they visited Christ Church. It is on the Ridge just next to Mall Road. The Ridge and Christ Church. After visiting Shimla so many times, they decided to adopt a child from Shimla. Going through a lot paperwork and other formalities, finally, they adopted a girl. Her name is Kirti. She had been living with them since she was 1 year old. Now she is 10 years old and goes to a local primary school. She is in year 5. John's parents live in the countryside. They used to run a farm. Now they rent it out. It is a big farm. In England, the average farm size is about 200 acres. They still own a farmhouse. During school holidays, Kirti often goes to the countryside and stays with John's parents. The name of John's dad is Mark, and his mum is called Susan. One day, Mark took Kirti for a country walk. A country walk is a walk through woods, hills, farmland, etc. One day they walked through the farmland. Most fields have fence around them. When they went from one field to another, they had to climb over a stile. A stile, 2-step ladder. For 20 minutes they walked a steep hill. When Kirti felt tired, they walked back down. On the way, they saw wind turbines. A wind turbine produces power to make electricity. Wind turbines. The next day after breakfast, they went to a farm. Not the farm which was owned by Mark, but a different farm. There was a path through the meadow to the farm. There were many different animals: goats, pigs, cows, chickens, and sheep. Kirti fed them different things. She fed a cow some grass. She fed a chicken some corn. She fed a pig some bread. She fed a goat some leaves. A meadow is a field with grass and wild flowers. The next day, Susan took Kirti along a brook. The brook runs past their farmhouse. It does not follow a straight route. The brook meanders through the trees. A brook, a small stream. When they came back, Kirti was a little tired. While they were away, Mark prepared some garden vegetable soup. The soup was very tasty. The soup was delicious. The soup was appetizing. The soup was mouth-watering. The soup was yummy. 3. The Blind Man and Young Animals. Near Shimla, on the hills in a village, lived a blind man. His name was Bana. He had an extraordinary talent. He could recognize any young animal simply by touching it. One day, people in the village decided to test his skills. They brought a chick of a chicken. He touched it and thought for a second, and then said, "A chick of a chicken." They brought a kitten of a cat. He put his hand on the young animal and said, "A kitten of a cat." They brought a lamb of a sheep. He patted the young animal and said, "A lamb of a sheep." They brought a calf of a cow. He stroked the young animal and said, "A calf of a cow." They brought a calf of a buffalo. He tapped the young animal gently and said, "A calf of a buffalo." They brought a piglet of a pig. He caressed the young animal and said, "A piglet of a pig." They brought a foal of a zebra. He felt the young animal and said, "A foal of a zebra." They brought a kid of a goat. He fondled the young animal and said, "A kid of a goat." Finally, they brought a pup of a wolf. He touched the young animal and said, "I cannot recognize this pup. I know it is a pup, but whether it is a pup of a dog or a wolf I cannot tell. One thing I am sure of is that I will not trust this young pup among a flock of sheep." Evil tendencies are shown early in life. 4. The Fox and the Grapes. Near a forest, there was a river. On the bank of the river lived a fox. He loved to eat fruit. Luckily, there was a beautiful orchard not very far from the river. Every day, the fox went to the orchard. He enjoyed all sort of fruit: apples, pears, peaches, plums, and so on. One day, the fox went for a walk along the river. It was a blazing hot summer day. The blazing heat made him sweat. His body was soaked in sweat. He decided to have a dip in the river. He jumped into the water. It was nice and cool. He enjoyed diving. Then he met his old friend, the frog. He said to his friend, "Dear frog, how are you? Long time no see. How is life treating you?" The frog cleared his throat and answered, "Not too bad. I went on holiday down the river. On the way, there was a lovely vineyard close to the river. Some grapes used to fall to the ground. I enjoyed eating them. It is really easy to travel downstream, however. It is much harder to swim upstream. Therefore, it took me a long time to come back." The next day, the fox thought to himself, "I have been eating apples, pears, and peaches for a long time. I think I need a change. I must go to the vineyard and try grapes." In the afternoon, the weather changed. The scorching hot day changed into a milder day. There was also a gentle, cool breeze. The fox walked to the vineyard. It was a lovely vineyard. There were all sorts of grapes: green, red, and purple ones. He stared at the lovely grapes that hung there. However, there were no grapes on the ground. He thought to himself, "How juicy they look. I am sure they are the sweetest grapes in the world." His mouth was full of water. He jumped to reach them, but fell down. He jumped again. No, they were much higher. He jumped even more, but they were still out of reach. He jumped and stretched and hopped, but to no avail. Those yummy grapes hung higher than the fox could reach. No matter how hard he tried, the fox could not reach the grapes. He panted and began to sweat out of exhaustion. Giving up finally, he looked up in contempt and said as he walked away, "Those grapes surely must be sour. I wouldn't eat them even if they were served to me on a silver plate or even on a golden dish." Moral: it is easy to hate what you cannot have. Vocabulary: orchard. An orchard is an area of land on which fruit trees are grown. Vineyard. A vineyard is an area of land where grapevines are grown in order to produce wine. 3. Contempt. A strong feeling of dislike, hate. 4. Pant. To breathe quickly and loudly. 5. Picture dictionary page.